Hi there, this is Eshu. I'm the abbot here at Zenwest Buddhist Society. This Living Zen-podcast is just one of the many resources we've created at Zenwest to make Zen practice and training more available and accessible to people all over the world. Instructional videos, printable resources, and much, much more are also available on our website at www.zenwest.ca. If you're a regular listener, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email at office@zenwest.ca and let me know who you are, how you got started, and what brought you to Zen. Everything we make available in person and online at Zenwest is only possible because of the support of our members and associates, people like you. If the efforts of our community are making a difference in your life, I'd like to invite you to show your support and take part in making it happen by becoming an associate or member of the Zenwest Sangha. You can do this by clicking the Join Us tab on our website at www.zenwest.ca. Thank you for your support, and thanks for listening.
Start by bowing together. And you can feel free to make yourself comfortable. You can turn this way. I'm not that animated when I talk, but you never know what could happen. I want to start by thanking you all for coming. It's really great to be here after a few weeks of not being here. Several weeks ago, I took on a new endeavor at Victoria Hospice Society as the spiritual health coordinator. So I've been learning a lot of new stuff. And in the evening on Tuesdays, there's been a training course. So I've had to miss the Tuesday sit and go to the course. It's a great course, but I'd rather be here. Tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about Zen practice. That might be a good idea. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what happens when we come to engage in Zen practice. Not just the sitting component of Zen practice, but the whole endeavor of this form, of this community, of practicing in community, practicing in a group, practicing in a tradition, I guess. Because I think that when we practice by ourselves, many people, especially nowadays, we hear about the benefits of meditation, and there's all kinds of different teachings of meditation, and crazy people on YouTube who put videos up on how. I do that too. So, how to meditate, and so many people we can sit down in our own environment, and we can take up this posture, and we can start to sit. And I think that's really great. I think that the more accessible instruction on meditation is, it's a great starting point. The difficulty is that we are really wily creatures, human beings. And so when we sit by ourselves, one of a couple of things happens. One is that sitting on its surface is really doing a lot of nothing. And we're really busy people, most of us. We have jobs and relationships and hobbies and all kinds of interesting things going on and crises popping off all the time. And so with all of this, when we're just starting out in a practice on our own, it's really easy for meditation practice to become something that we'll do later. Or maybe I have a number of things that really I don't have the time to sit around and do nothing for 10 minutes or half an hour or whatever it is that we want to do. And my experience is that meditation is something, it's like, I often refer to it as mental hygiene. You've got your dental hygiene and you've got your mental hygiene. And it's a routine. It's just like brushing your teeth or exercise. You know, if you do it every day, it really keeps you in good health. But just like brushing your teeth, if you did it, I don't know, once a week or once every few weeks, you might start to develop some build-up, plaque. And I think that meditation is very much the same way. When we're not engaged in it consistently, we develop plaque, tartar, mental emotional tartar. So when we start by ourselves, oftentimes what happens is that our best intentions are waylaid by other stuff that comes up. The other thing that happens is that we become very controlling or fragile in our practice. If we do manage to be consistent, what starts to happen when we live on our own is that we start to apply mindfulness to our lives and our environment. We start to arrange our space where we're going to meditate in just such a way, and we start to arrange our clothing in just such a way, and we start to arrange as much of our space as we can in such a way. But what starts to happen is that it starts to become very fragile. And our ability to meditate can become really precious and delicate, so that if anything goes wrong, if anything's not just the right way that we need it to be to meditate, it can throw our whole practice off, and we can really fall off the wagon, so to speak. Either that, or our meditation starts to make us feel very special. It starts to make us feel very spiritual, very precious. And it's that same tendency that as we walk down the street, we start to feel like the rest of the world is dirty, and other people are kind of impure, and we in our meditative practice are so wonderful. But it's so precious, and the only time we feel that expanse or that clarity is when we're on the cushion in our special environment and there's nothing to bother us. And the rest of the time, everything is so dirty and people are so selfish and all this kind of stuff. So in Zen, we really like to come and practice in a group. And this really is a challenge for a lot of people, because we think, if I want to meditate, I need to manipulate my environment so that I can be in this sort of peaceful place, so that my mind can come to ease. And that's a lot of work. If the only time that you can find equanimity or peace is if sort of the world is at peace, it's going to be a very difficult row to hoe. The Buddha talked about this, and he said it's like saying the only way that you can walk without suffering is by covering the whole earth in leather. The alternative is to just wear shoes, right? So when we come to practice together, particularly in a group, a lot of people really struggle with this, because we come and we have this form and this environment. We could say, wow, we really do control this environment. We really do make efforts and take pains to lay out an environment which is conducive to practice, which is conducive to our allowing our bodies and our minds and our hearts to settle. And we do, it's true. We have a form, and we spend some time talking about a physical form so that we can have the greatest, most stable posture that we can to give us the greatest advantage to just be able to be physically still. Because when we're physically still, then our hearts, our emotions, our minds, everything can start to become very still. But the truth is, we're in a world, and we're on Quadra Street right now, so it's very busy. And we're in a room with a whole bunch of human beings, and each one of them breathes and has sensation and different digestive issues going on, and physical aches and pains, and different emotional and mental activities that are taking place, different physical capabilities as well. And so as we practice, we're in this environment which at once is very controlled, but is also within that structure, within that boundary, there is innumerable possibilities of what's going to happen. And as we sit, all of that comes into play. When we start to sit, oftentimes the first difficulty that we have is with the conceptual mind. We sit down in this still posture and we take up the paying attention to the activity of our breath, just breathing in and out of our bellies. But as we do so, we notice that there's this really sort of high frequency kind of thought going on. And it's all about what's been happening today and what's been happening, what we need to do tomorrow, what so-and-so said earlier on. We're going through our checklist and all of those kinds of things. And so for the first while, we're sliding back and forth between paying attention to our breath and paying attention to this sort of hamster wheel of thought that's going on. Sometimes maybe on a Tuesday night, that's all we're doing. We've just got so much going on. Maybe at the end of the sit, finally the hamster starts to get a little bit tired and we have just a single moment of feeling our emotions. Or maybe even after a few breaths, we're able to let go of that thought. Sometimes it can seem like the thought diminishes, quietens, slows down. But the truth is, I think the easiest thing or the easier way to deal with the thinking mind is to let it go. What do I mean by that? You hear it all the time in Zen. Let it go. One of the real challenges we have in practice, I think, is that we're constantly trying to make our thinking mind stop, or we're trying to find a space where the thinking mind isn't, or how we can get away from the thinking mind. And I think that this is a real mistake. Our thinking mind is a real, very natural process. But it doesn't require us to actively engage all the time. Master Linji uses this metaphor of a sticky lacquer tray. And so our minds, as we sit and as we're paying attention, its function is to be taking in all of the information that's around us and processing it, and spitting out responses and information about what that all is. But as we're sitting, we can look at this as if it were a sticky lacquer tray. The metaphor comes from like Chinese. You've seen like Chinese black lacquer work, trays, tables, all that kind of cups, that kind of thing. And when you make it, it takes many coats of lacquer. And if you've seen it, you know that the finish is like, it's almost like glass. It looks wet. But when it actually is wet, lacquer is quite a nasty substance. And so the image is that when we see something so attractive, so desirable, our tendency is that we want to take it, we want to have it, so we want to touch it. But when we touch it and it's wet, then what a mess. We get it on our hands, and then everything that we touch trying to clean ourselves up also is made a mess of. Likewise, our thought patterns, as we are starting into the meditation activity, thoughts arise. Good thoughts, desirable thoughts, enjoyable thoughts, pleasant thoughts, difficult thoughts, busy thoughts, unpleasant thoughts, all kinds of thoughts come up. And our tendency is that either we want to pick them up, if it's a great idea or something like that. Or we want to push them away if it's something we don't want to think about. Either way, when we engage in this, picking up or pushing away, we become stuck. We're laying our hands on this sticky lacquer tray. Our meditation practice is not an activity of addition. We're not taking up something else for us to do. The practice of meditation is not to somehow get in there and manipulate and try to still our busy mind. Our practice is simply not to pick it up. So as this activity takes place, thoughts arise and thoughts subside. We continue to pay attention to our breath, and we'll observe that to the degree that we're able to stay connected, to engage with our breath, thoughts become less and less of an issue. It's not that they go away. It's not that suddenly it ceases. But more and more we're able to simply let the thoughts slide by without picking them up, without trying to avoid them, without being distracted by them. Okay, so that's thoughts. Once we sort of, I'm going to talk about this in sort of layers, but it's not really in layers. It's not really clear cut between one process and the next. These are all intertwined, and they come back and forth as we sit. But regardless of where we are in a process of meditation, the fundamental activity that we're engaged in is always the same. It is simply to let go, to continue to be completely present with what's taking place in this moment, without being pulled away by whatever's coming up. Beneath the surface of our conceptual mind, our thoughts, is a vast realm of emotion, feelings. And we can feel these in our heart, we can feel these in our mind, we can feel these throughout our body. And as we sit, spontaneously, all kinds of emotions can come up. And they can be unpleasant emotions. Please make yourself comfortable. If you're dying, move it. Yeah. Yeah. Because, emotions. So once our thoughts and mental distractions start to be less of a distraction, emotion comes into play. And we can have all kinds of emotion. We can have positive emotions about joy and love and gratitude come up. Or we can have emotions of anger, grief, fear. These kinds of emotions come up. And in the beginning, especially, the emotion arises and connects so nicely with the intellectual mind, the conceptual mind. Oftentimes as we're sitting, we start to have an emotion, and if we can't immediately identify something that's causing the emotion coming up from within, it's really easy, we start looking around for why. Why am I feeling angry? Why am I feeling sad? Why am I feeling anxious? And this sort of group environment, we all serve as such wonderful external mirrors for our anxiety. We have to be very careful at this point, because it's really easy to project our emotions onto the people around us. I often tell a story of my early training. I had a lot of anger when I was younger. And I was in a retreat in which there was a person who sat to my right, which meant they were in front of me in the walking line, that had a tremendous amount of difficulty keeping in step. In fact, keeping in any kind of rhythmic pattern. And so it was very easy for me in that retreat to make my anger about that person. Couldn't keep in step. How stupid can you be? How clumsy can you be? Rah, 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 rah. And it was during this retreat that I had this realization that I was actually starting to plot this person's injury, serious injury, so that they would be forced to leave the retreat. And I realized that this emotional content was like at a level 8 or 9. And, the offense of not being able to walk in step was like 0.3, right? Like this is, and we're in a Buddhist place, we should be kind, And it was really a powerful tool for me to recognize that the emotion that's coming up is sometimes not immediately discernible where it's coming from. And we really like to have reasons for our emotions, whether they're negative. And it's easy to think that negative emotions are the most destructive. You get angry, you want to crush somebody. But the truth is, positive emotions can be just as destructive. If we start to feel love and joy, and we begin to say, the reason that I'm feeling this is because of that person that's across the room. And I start to behave as if my entire joy and all of my love is based on that person across the room. Well, what if I'm married? What if they're married? One of the most dangerous is when you look at that person in the nice robes and the fancy seat and you say, it's because he's such a wonderful teacher, a bodhisattva. And you give away this joy, this love, this awe that's arising from within you, you give it away to somebody or something else. And this is your work, this is your fuel, this is your heart. When it's negative emotion, it's also yours, your anger, your fear, your grief. So what do? Well, just like I was saying with the intellectual, the busy mind, our practice is simply to allow ourselves to be immersed in that, to bathe in that, to find our root through our breath and through the stability of this physical posture and through the stability of the structure of the form, to be able to simply be with the difficult emotion, with the positive emotion, to watch it arise, to watch it exist, and to watch it pass. We're not engaging in trying to force it down to avoid it. Likewise, we're not indulging in it, jumping on it and saying, woo, I'm on the anger bandwagon or I'm on the happy love bandwagon. Just to simply sit and to not pick it up. Don't pick up the lacquer tray. As we continue to engage in this practice, to continue to engage in this, as we sit, all kinds of thoughts are going to come up. All kinds of emotions are going to come up. All kinds of confusions and physical difficulties with the practice are going to come up. All kinds of personal conflicts with other people that we're practicing in this Zendo are going to come up. While we're engaged in this practice, our fundamental root is to find this balance, this centeredness, where we can just sit, listen, and look. And as we do this, we begin to find this fundamental stability, this stillness, this quiet. And it's not the quiet external quiet. And it's not the dependent stillness, which is dependent on an external stillness. It's a stillness and a silence which exists in the midst of activity, in the midst of sound. We discover it in this stable, consistent practice. But as we go out from this meditation hall, as we go out from our daily practice into the world, we don't leave it there. This is the value of Zen practice. When we practice in this way, then when we go out into our world, into our relationships, into our work, into conflict in the world around us, we have a home, we have a base, we have a center of stillness, of equanimity, of stability that we've cultivated. It's not something that we've created, because it's always there. But it's something that we've rediscovered. Many of my teachers often say, it's coming home, returning home, finding our original home. And this is very much the way that I experience it, and that even when we're getting caught up, even when we're getting distracted by our thoughts or by the emotions that are arising, if we have just a moment of awareness, of catching ourselves, we can return to our breath, we can return to the center, we can return to this home. So this practice that we have together, it's wonderful. And it's a really great opportunity to come and enjoy this environment that's been created, manipulated for us to really dive in, to give us the greatest opportunity to find this space in our own breath and in our own lives. But our true practice, having practiced consistently, having developed this spaciousness in our lives, is to live, is to make relationship, is to walk through this world for the benefit of all beings. And the way that we do this is by living our lives consistently out of this true home.
Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.